Today on our chronological rewatch of the Clone Wars, we venture into the Lair of Grievous. Size of Coin starts right now. Today is the day, guys. I've been looking forward to this since we started the rewatch. It's Kit Fisto Day. Kit Fisto is in the episode. I got all my swag on, my Hail Hydra Kit Fisto shirt. I got my mug, got my little bust here. We're ready to rock and roll and talk about the world's greatest Jedi. And joining us today on this monumentous occasion is Michael.
What's up?
He's wearing green too.
It's not
in
that
solidarity of Kit Fisto, the greatest Jedi of all time.
The deadest Jedi of all time.
Oof. Too soon. Wyatt's producing us today.
Hey.
Wow. That was very stoic. All right. Well, then let's get into it, man. So last time we saw that due to the treachery of Captain Argaius, the Senate Commando, he, along with Ventress, broke Nute Gunray out of Republic custody. And so they said, luckily, Kit Fisto's armada is in the region, and so they tracked him down to this remote planet. So Kit Fisto, together with his former Padawan Nadar Veb and a couple of clones, they try to break into this stronghold that they find there. And come to find out, Gunray's not there. It was a hologram, and he's very happy to have fooled the Jedi and so on and so forth. And then Dooku buzzes in and says, hey, well, you can capture Grievous instead, because he wants to test him. And then so Grievous comes back home, and they go through this whole sort of horror-inspired episode going through trying to survive as one by one they're picked off. And then eventually Kit Fisto is the last one to survive this house of horrors. So let's get into it. I loved the episode. Getting to see Kit Fisto was just a treat. But what do you think, Michael?
Oh, I loved it. I will say I think Grievous was a little less threatening and intimidating than we have seen him in the Tartakovsky series. I made that comment before. He took on like a dozen Jedi, and they barely survived. In this case, he got pretty beat up pretty fast, but I think it was clear he had just come from something.
Yeah,
He was
they
a little
had
bit
a complete jump on him for sure.
Right. I liked that it was interesting to see Dooku kind of messing with his own people, setting a trap for, it was kind of unclear who the trap was set for. He was like, well, either they kill Grievous and I get a new general, or Grievous kills the Jedi and, we're less Jedi. And it was very interesting to see the effects of the war on the young Jedi.
Yeah.
On Fisto's younger apprentice or
so let's talk about that for sure. Nadar Veb is the Mon Calamari Jedi who was formerly assigned to Kit Fisto, and he was really, really interesting. There's a whole lot to break down with him. So starting with, he was, I guess, removed from Fisto's tutelage.
Right, they accelerated his training or something.
Yeah, probably due to the war. And I think they say as much in the episode because of the war. He didn't get to finish his training. But it really speaks to the fact that the Jedi really had, this Clone War really stretched them to their limits, and it made them compromise a lot of their ideals and start cutting corners.
Which is basically what Yoda says in the last minutes of the episode. It's the same kind of thing, which immediately made me think of Dark Disciple, because I'm like,
yes.
Yep, I hope, because that happens very shortly after this or whatever. So, you're drinking out of the same cup, Yoda.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of things that start to change. And one of the things I noticed about Nadar was that he uses the Force
offensively,
offensively, but also just as a convenience factor. So it's interesting. In Legends, there's a series of books, the Fate of the Jedi novels, to the last full series that's released. There's the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and they end up traveling with Luke and his son Ben. And one of the things that they keep discussing is how the Sith always use the Force as a tool, whereas the Jedi are one with the Force. They embrace it, and they are the tools of the Force, right? So there's sort of that split there. And that's sort of what Kit Fisto was saying. Like, Nadar Veb will use the Force to turn a chair around or, split the fog away and all this sort of stuff. It was really interesting to see the young Jedi sort of compromising their ideals and all this sort of stuff.
Besides the angry face eyes the entire time.
He
was very clearly, aggressive and very, I think it would have been interesting if he had survived. He probably would have been an interesting dark Jedi.
Probably been recruited for the Inquisitor program or the Inquisitorius or whatever they call
Imagine that helmet. Gosh.
Wow.
That
would be a big one for sure. But yeah, so Nadar was very, very interesting. His overconfidence and thinking that he could take on Grievous and
Revenge,
Magna Guards all by himself. I loved the dynamic of how there's a whole squad of clones, and they slowly, just one by one, going through this, get picked off, and then by the end of it, it's just Kit Fisto left.
I'm sensing we really like episodes where they kill off all the clones. Like,
well,
it just seems to be a trend with us.
Well, it just shows the gravity of the situation. You get to meet these characters. They have names, Niner and all this stuff. You once they were given a name, then you feel like they might survive,
right?
And then they don't, and that hurts even more. So particularly the captain, he was very cool. He showed he had a lot of skill in combat and everything. Right. He was no slouch. And then let's talk about that monster gore that Grievous sicks on him. That was pretty. It could have been frightening for sure. I mean, I imagine as a kid you might get unsettled by it.
I don't know. I watched it and I don't know. I wasn't sold. It didn't seem like a very Star Wars like monster to me. It was very dinosaur like, but also kind of really spindly and had very thin limbs and things. I don't know. It reminded me of something, but I can't put my finger on it. I'm not sure what it was. It seems like it was from a different series or something though.
I don't know. I didn't really have that same reaction. I had seen, I guess, playing KOTOR and some of the other games, like you had the Torrent attacks and some of these dark side monsters that were definitely used a lot, but I could see how it could be a little jarring. It didn't do that for me quite so much, but either way, what it led me to think was, how cool would this episode in particular have been if it was live action and just shot incredibly dark? I mean, just like an R-rated sort of horror vibe in Star Wars would be so cool to see.
Well, the best part too was all the allusion to Grievous's backstory, which unfortunately we never really got. Yeah. But to see all the various, like what he looked like before, who he was before, they changed a little bit of the story, which, as I understood before, was he was in some sort of accident that Palpatine had arranged, but now
we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Exactly. But now it seems like it was something that, as the droid's talking to him, as the medical droid's talking to him, it sounded like it was something he submitted himself to.
Yeah. There were improvements.
Right. And he was very defensive about it. But
that medical droid was pretty neat in and of itself.
Right.
Somebody who is so important to Grievous, for his self-betterment, that he puts up with the sort of sass and backtalk and verbal abuse that he was throwing his way.
Makes me think like both Gore and this droid were probably longtime companions of him when he was a warlord or whatever it was before that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to see Grievous in his home turf and how he reacted to all these different things. Kit Fisto was great. I loved seeing his sort of sagely wisdom. That scene at the end after Nadar tragically kind of bites it.
Fog and stuff too.
Yeah, the way he used the elements to his advantage. Grievous did well too with his swordsmanship, using the defensive sort of formation of the
he went back and got a health
around.
pack though. It was kind of cheating. Like he went and got rebuilt halfway through, and
that's fair.
Yeah. And Phil Lamar's voice acting for Kit Fisto is always fantastic.
It was awesome. Yeah, he did a great job.
I think he did the Tartakovsky series voice too, didn't he? Or did Fisto even talk in that? I don't even remember.
I don't recall. That he did or not. But yeah, Phil Lamar did a great job. It was awesome. The fight scene though on the platform was just so great. I liked Grievous's line, "Surrender, and I promise you'll die quickly." Like, I thought it was going to be like one of those classic, like, if you surrender, I'll let you live. It's just kind of, I'll just kill you, but it'll be quicker than otherwise. So
it was interesting to see Fisto fight with two lightsabers too, which is something that is not necessarily an advantage in many cases. If you're not practiced with it, it's not as though every Jedi is just better with two. If they were, they would carry two. So it's interesting.
So I guess sometimes in the book Darth Bane, they said they kept that as sort of sometimes they would imply that it was harder to use, but then some of these masters would keep it as a secret sort of edge because you're not sure how to defend against it. Similar to Grievous using 4.
Right.
It's just you're overwhelming him with flourish and all this sort of stuff to kind of take. God, I'm just stumbling all over my words. Take them off guard.
Right. And to me, it seemed like it was a more matched defense against Grievous. With 4, he had 2, and it was able to. But it also, to me, it simulated like it signaled him going on the defensive. He was no longer attacking so much as he was just buying time till his ship showed up.
For sure.
His ship was cool too.
I loved that. Yeah, absolutely. R6. Yep, that was great. Getting to see how he got Nadar's lightsaber back, so he wouldn't let his Padawan's lightsaber be another part of the collection. That was really cool.
Seeing the like platter of apprentice braids was dark too. If you were a kid watching this, you wouldn't realize that's what that was. But those were like apprentices that he had cut down.
Yeah,
that's dark.
Younglings and young Padawans and stuff. Gosh, that was pretty intense. He had a lot of trophies. I mean, the lightsabers he had on him, plus all the extras that were in his little lair there. Yeah, it was crazy. I'm trying to think, just visually too, the animation was a lot better in this one. You're really starting to see where it's going. Nadar looked great. They captured the sort of liquid nature of his eyes. Looked really, really good.
It's true.
And also, there was something very visually awesome about the 4 lightsabers versus the 2 lightsabers, and all the head tails flying around, and just the physics of him fighting. It was really, really cool to see that fight on the platform.
I didn't have a lot of senses in the fights in this scene or in this episode too, where it was like, okay, why is everyone standing around watching them one-on-one? There was a couple times when the Magna Guards were taking on Fisto, and then he got away from them, and then it was Grievous, but the Magna Guards weren't like doing nothing. They were making their way over. But,
yeah, they were boxing him in, sort of making a perimeter.
It wasn't just like everyone's standing around watching. It's like, shoot him, which frankly that kind of happens in episode 3, but it's on purpose. They say, let me fight him. All the droids don't just shoot Obi-Wan immediately.
Right. Yeah. I think one more thing I really, watching it with Angela, she was mentioning how creepy Grievous was, and it was really cool to see him actually be creepy, right? Like caught off guard, tow cables, shot into his legs. I mean, he's just surrounded completely. And
he cut off his own legs?
No, Fisto did. He wanted to make him, fall on the ground, but then Grievous caught onto the ceiling and held himself there.
There's a little spider crawl thing.
Oh, that crawl is just gotta be terrifying. Imagine like this 7-foot tall cyborg with 4 arms just spider crawling straight towards you. Yeah, that's kind of frightening.
I still miss the Tartakovsky, like.
So it's
in the shadows, and the voice was a little bit different, and just the sheer destruction, the ease at which he just pulverized the Jedi and the troopers was. I felt like it was a little more intimidating, but it was also a little unrealistically powerful compared to.
And it was so stylized too. Visually, I always had a hard time with that series because it was so stylized, and I had never really spent too much time with that medium. I didn't watch too many cartoons or anything.
That's right.
So the 2D animation was a lot for me. Like I said, I keep thinking about seeing that live action just done with a big budget. That would be just so intense. That would be incredible to see. True. But any final thoughts? Anything else that jumped out at you?
No, I don't think that's about it.
Yeah, it was very, very enjoyable. One of my I think it's my favorite episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just standalone.
Kit Fisto,
that's a huge boon for it also. But the duel, and then the fact that it's so claustrophobic of an episode. There's so much going on, and so few people make it out. It was really, really neat. And there are some later on with the 3-episode arcs that tell a lot more of a story, but just when you take a singular episode, it does very well.
Right.
I enjoyed it a lot. That's about all I got to say, but this was a real good one. Let us know in the comments what you think, and why is Kit Fisto your favorite Jedi? Let me know, and we'll be back next time with more Sides of Coins.